Hello everyone! I will admit, this is not the form I was thinking the Q&A video would take. I was actually wanting to show up on screen for the video. That said, my friend who's a cinematographer, he was a bit too busy this weekend, and I've run out of a lot of free time recently just due to how much I'm having to dedicate to the many toys of Starscream. As a result, this is going to be another one of these behind the camera type videos, and I'll flash up photos of what I'm talking about. I still wanted to get this video done quickly though, because over 100 of you gave me questions. So to celebrate those 100, as well as the over 10,000 behind them that got me to this milestone, welcome to the many toys of, or I suppose this time, the many questions of RonBonDujon, in which I'm going to do my best to cover every single question sent in by the people who interacted with either the video or the community post I did. I'm going to assure you right now, I did my best to not think about these questions beforehand. I compiled them all into a folder, and I'm going to do my best to be as candid and off the cuff with them as possible. Alongside that, I know already that there's some repeat questions. If there's a repeat question, I'm actually going to give you an alternate answer. So for instance, if someone says, what is my favorite Generations toy? I'll tell you my favorite one the first time. And then the second time I get that question, I'll give someone who I would consider to be right up there with it. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. Totally Not Xfinity wants to know what my Mount Rushmore a Studio Series figures would be. Revenge of the Fallen Megatron is always going to be super high up there because he was the Studio Series figure that made me give the line a try, and I still love him. Bumblebee movie Jet Shatter, just because that's still the only good toy of Shatter, and she's one of my absolute favorites. Some recency bias, I'm going to say Transformers 1 Sentinel, just because I think that's a beautifully engineered toy, and I love the design of Sentinel Prime. And then for my fourth one, I'm going to go Bumblebee movie RC. And obviously, Bumblebee movie, that's my favorite lineup of toys they've done in Studio Series. I'll also say this, I'm not counting Studio Series 86, because that feels like it should just be Generations. But that's my Mount Rushmore. So Revenge of the Fallen Megatron, TF1 Sentinel, and then Bumblebee movie, Jet Shatter, and RC. Totally Not Xfinity returns with if I had to choose one Transformer to make vanish, which means it will never have originally been created, and no one will remember it, what character would I choose? Parentheses, it has to be well known. That's tough. I don't really tend to dislike characters that severely. And I can only choose one, so I couldn't say like Mudflap and Skids. That would be my easy answer. I would actually go with Bayverse Optimus, just because I feel like a lot of the bad Optimus Primes that's in the franchise all come from Hasbro trying to align the character with the Michael Bay version. But then again, does that mean that I'm deleting all Optimus Primes? No, I'm going to say that flavor. I just want to get rid of Bayverse Optimus, and hopefully that means that Prime Optimus can actually be cool. Jake the Train Guy is taking a break from constantly slobbing on the knob of Astro Train to ask me, what is the best triple changer? Truth be told, it's either Astro Train or Blitzwing. They're constantly going back and forth for me. 2, if a day out with Astro... How did I know that this is going to be an Astro Train question? Okay. If a day out with Astro Train was a thing, would you go? I don't know what that means. A day out with Astro Train? Is it like, am I just on a train? Or like, is this like a meetup with him? I actually don't think I would go, because I don't know what a day out with Astro Train would be. And 3, would I ever consider making a model train layout? I don't really mess around with model trains. I think they're cool. I just don't have the space, nor the, that much interest in trains. But if someone were to do like a big model train layout and include the Decepticon headquarters or the Ark, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Davimus wants to know, how would I rank the War for Cybertron and Legacy trilogies? Alright. Okay, yeah, I think I know. So, at the very top is going to be Kingdom. I think Kingdom was the best one overall. I can't think of a dud in Kingdom. And then after Kingdom, I think I'll go Legacy United. Just because I felt like Legacy United was all the best parts of Legacy with none of the guff. In that top 3, I think I would put right after Legacy United, I think I would put Legacy 1. Legacy 1 had a real bad start with Prime RC and Prime Bulkhead, and people really hated Cybertron Metroplex. But in retrospect, there were a lot of really good toys in Legacy 1. Override, even Cybertron Metroplex was a really good Titan. I think people were just mad that it wasn't Tidal Wave. So after that, I would put in Siege. I think Siege is a better toy line than Legacy. The issue is that it was immediately kind of made irrelevant by Earthrise. In 5th place, I'd put Legacy Evolution. Legacy Evolution's such a forgettable toy line to me. I don't even remember who all came out in that middle child of a line. I know Animated Prowl's there, so the reason why it's 5 is because it's there by default. Earthrise is such a neutered toy line. Just because it came out during the pandemic, it feels like a half-finished line. And even the toys that did come out, a lot of them had some really weird things. Like, do you remember when we thought Earthrise Optimus was going to have gray hands? Because they kept sending out bad renders? Like, there were so many weird issues like that with Earthrise, without getting into the fact that it was a short line, quality control, distribution, so many problems that were out of Hasbro's control because of the pandemic. At the same time, that's the toy line that gave me a Quintesson, so it's always going to be great just for that. HF Studios Official. Nobody would say that, but how are you, your life? I'm doing pretty okay, there's good days and bad days, but usually I'm pretty happy with things. I'm enjoying my work, I'm enjoying YouTube, I'm enjoying my living situation, so can't really complain. Thank you. Tax Evader on the Run asks, why have you not hired me yet? Like, I'd make the sea spray video for you, not gonna lie. I'll be honest, I don't make that much money off the YouTube. Like, I barely break even when it comes to stuff I put onto the channel. So, I don't have the revenue to bring someone else on board, but thank you for the offer. Second question, what character should I beg you for once you make the sea spray video? Anyone that only has, like, one toy. Do Nautica. Give me a character that I can get done with in, like, 20 minutes. Yummy II asks me, who makes your thumbnails? Is it a mix of people or all just you? If it is toy photography, it's all me. I'm the one that does the Photoshop to get all the toys. But if it is drawn, it has never been me. Shardik Art did my Proud 2 thumbnail and my Inferno thumbnail. Oscar NJ Boy did my Bludgeon and my Ratchet thumbnails. And then Zammy Zam did my Cosmos thumbnail. But for the most part, I do all the thumbnails. If it's drawn, usually I commission it. But a handful of those were gifts, and very appreciated gifts. I really enjoyed using them. Alright, Wolf2000 has a couple of things to ask me. What's my favorite Transformer of all time? It could be a toy, comic, show, or scrapped design. My favorite Transformer is Thundercracker. And I guess my favorite toy of him would be Thrilling 30 Thundercracker, because that's the one I grew up with. What's my favorite color scheme? Anything with winter colors. I like my blues and my purples. Do you plan on collecting all of the Primes coming out of the Age of the Primes toy line? I do not. I'm going to get a couple that I think are cool, like Onyx, and then Quintus, so they do a good Quintus. But for the most part, I just have no connection to the 13 Primes. Do I play any horror games like Dead Space, or, this might be a bit childish, but Garten of Banban? I do play horror games. I don't play many video games currently, but when I was a teenager, I loved Dead Space. I'm a big fan of Doom, even though I don't know if that's really a horror game. And then Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. Do I plan on getting a Switch 2? I hardly ever use my Switch 1 anymore, so I'm probably not going to get a Switch 2. Could you have the comments that you are answering on screen? Yeah, that's what I'm planning to do. So all these comments should be on screen as I'm answering them. Weaponized toy car coming in with favorite kind of pasta. I didn't know there were multiple types of pasta. What's your favorite album of all time? Asked James Stuff 893. This is where I have to expose myself. I don't really know albums. Growing up at the very beginning of the iPod era, I kind of just get the songs I like. One that comes to mind is Marty Robinson and his Gunslinger Ballads album. That's where you get Big Iron. Sure, I'll go with that. That's my favorite album of all time. The Elite X Gamer 27. When are you going to cover the many toys of Dirt Boss and Trigger Happy? I always feel like I'm a jerk when I say this, and I'm not trying to downplay anything. It really just depends. I get so many requests for so many characters, and there's only so much time in a week. You know, I've only recently started doing a thing where I'll do 2 mini episodes for weekends, and even that is eating into so much more of my free time lately. But someday we'll get Dirt Boss and Trigger Happy. In all seriousness, what's your favorite toy from Cybertron? Mine has to be Optimus with the Wing Saber combo. My favorite toy from Cybertron's probably Crumble Zone. I like his character, I love his design, and I enjoy the fact that he's such a big, clunky robot that turns into a pretty sleek sports car, all things considered. I can't think of another Transformer who's like him. I actually prefer him as design to Bulkhead. I like Bulkhead as a character way more, but with how much Bulkhead has similarities to Crumple Zone in the head and in the colors, I kind of wish he also took Crumple Zone's really cool aesthetic, you know? JD Raindrop YT, what is your opinion on John Pork lore? I don't know what John Pork is. Where does OreoBot rank on your favorite Transformers list? Is OreoBot the one in Age of Extinction? Yeah, he's the one that, Vangelis is the one who made the whole fanfic idea that Mountain Dew Bot, Dispensor, became OreoBot. I don't think about OreoBot. The reality is I'm going to stop recording this clip in a sec, and I'm going to completely forget about OreoBot again. But screw it. For this moment, he's my favorite. Until I forget about him, he's number 1. Bobby Bob 7728. What seeker do I think Blokees will make after Thrust in their G1 IDW Galaxy version? And what is my prediction for Wave 8? So let's see here. Who are they still needing to do? I guess Sunstorm still needs one. So I'm probably going to say Sunstorm, because I seem to remember that Ramjet has already been announced. And then IDW Galaxy version, what's my prediction for Wave 8? I don't know if they're going to go back to Transformers 1 so quickly. I think they're going to probably try to stick to IDW for a little bit, just because people were so enamored with it. And I think that if they do a dedicated IDW wave, we'll probably get Windblade, IDW Rodimus, probably IDW Magnus. They've already done IDW Megs. So I'm going to say probably IDW Starscream, President Starscream. And those are the only 4 that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm looking at my IDW shelf right now. Probably IDW Cyclonus, just because they still need a Cyclonus. And then, just for my own wants and love, I want Skids and Brainstorm and Chrome Dome. And I want Chrome Dome to come with Rewind as an accessory. Molly Encrypted 2488. Which toyless Transformer would I most like to see in a future generation's imprint? I went back to make absolutely certain that this character does not have a toy, and they don't. Botanica. Botanica from Beast Machines needs a toy. She's been in this franchise for over 20 years now. She's one of the main characters of a pretty important show in the fandom, and it's ridiculous that we still don't have a good toy. We don't have any toy of Botanica. Mortalus Prime. If I could have any 5 characters be updated in Legacy, Age of the Prime style, who would they be? R.I.D. Steeljaw is always at the top of my list. He's such a great design, and I want more of him. Nautica needs a good toy still. It's insane that no one's actually given a go at her. Back to my Beast Machines love, Strika and Obsidian really need good toys. And that leaves me with a fifth one. I want to actually G1 accurate Alita 1. I want a Alita 1 Voyager scale that looks like her cartoon design. What would I consider the top 3 best and worst figures in my collection? My 3 favorites are actually just going to be childhood favorites. It's going to be my 2007 movie Cliff Jumper. It's going to be my Thrilling 30 Thundercracker. And in all honesty, probably either my Classics Optimus or my Beast Wars Transketo. Or my Universe Cyclonus. See, this is the issue, is all my favorites are going to be the ones that have been with me since childhood, and I want to keep them safe. My 3 least favorites, I don't know. I'm actually not entirely sure. I really don't like Reactivate Bumblebee. That's pretty high up on my list. And I'm not big on, I don't know, Cyberverse Scout Class Starscream. I still need one more. Generations Fall of Cybertron Steeljaw. There we go. Those are the 3. That's the thing, is I don't keep a hate list of Transformers going in my mind. And then finally, when will I make the Many Toys of Bruticus? I guess when I have the time to do the Many Toys of Bruticus. 1916. What figures do I dislike the most? You see, this is the same thing again. I don't really keep track of characters or toys I dislike. If I don't like them, I tend to just give them away. I'm looking around right now. I'm gonna go with Burger King Orion packs. Sure, that one. What figures do I think are overrated? Reactivate Bumblebee is the recent one, because I just did a review on him, and I hated it, every second of it, of trying to transform him. Also, most Masterpiece toys, I think a lot of them are overhyped, and really, I'm more happy with Generations versions of most of those characters. Bobby Bob is back. Is Whirl my favorite character? If no, why am I not telling the truth? Whirl is not my favorite character, and I'll be honest, there are pretty decent chunks of time where I forget Whirl even exists. Minuteman Alex. What is my favorite Transformers gimmick? I don't want to be a jerk and just say transformation. My favorite gimmick? I really enjoy the cassettes. I think they're my favorite. I think that's my favorite gimmick, is the idea that I can have a big Transformer and they can send out little minions. What is my favorite sub-faction in both the Autobots and the Decepticons? The Decepticons are easy. The Seekers. The Seekers are always going to be my favorite sub-faction. Combaticons, or rather the Constructicons, right after them. In terms of Autobots, I don't really think of the sub-factions that much. I'm going to say, maybe just the ARC crew in general. Because I don't like any of the Autobot Combiner teams. And I can't think of many of the special teams I like either. Who the hell cares about the Throttlebots? Marionetto7670. What is my second favorite Combiner? Well, that's tough. I don't even know who my favorite Combiner is. I'm just going to say second favorite is probably Bruticus. I think Bruticus because I think Devastator is my favorite Combiner still. And then, due to their nationality, they are contractually obligated to ask if I will ever come to Brazil. I would adore to come to Brazil. I would have to brush up on my Portuguese, but I would adore to take in any of South America, to be honest. I've never gone much more south than Florida, and I would love to just take in other cultures during my lifetime. Blobbles5973, where did the name RonBonDujon come from? So, I actually don't remember. I think it was just me kind of scatting. Doing the da-da-da-do-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I was scatting people's names. I was going through, my siblings, and eventually it came to me, and I was Ron-da-don-da-don-bo-don, Ron-ba-bon-ba-bon-dujon, and eventually I just started doing RonBonDujon, and that became my username on a couple of social media websites. And then when YouTube blew up, RonBonDujon became the only thing I had because I wanted to try to keep personal stuff and YouTube stuff separate. But that's where RonBonDujon comes from. It was just me being done with my own name. Frosty Sparrows 7993. If I could pick a musical group singer to do the songs for a Transformer movie, who would it be? To make it interesting, bands who have done so already are not allowed to be picked. I can tell you right now, there's not a single band in Transformers that I know of who I'd want to come back. Except for maybe Linkin Park. In terms of a band that I'm amazed they never went with, especially when they got really big after Tron Legacy, Daft Punk would probably make some sick songs for Transformers. I know they're not a group anymore, but if I could pick any group, I would say let's get Daft Punk back together and have them make a cool techno soundtrack. They would have been great for, like, specifically animated, I think. Rangerus2202. They have 2 questions for me. What's my favorite Transformers series? Oh, it's probably IDW1. It kind of has to be IDW1, I think. There's others that I really enjoy, but I go back to IDW more. What's my favorite Transformers toys that I have or that I don't have? I don't think I've answered this exactly yet. My absolute favorite Transformer toy of all time is still the 2007 movie Cliffjumper, the repaint of the deluxe Bumblebee from the 2007 movie. He's not a perfect toy, but I think he is the best Transformer ever because he was my favorite as a kid, and he is still just incredible to me today. So he is always going to be my top favorite. Blitzrob. If I were put in charge of the Transformers brand, what decisions would I make? If I was in charge of Transformers as a brand, I would kill it for a couple years. I would say, okay, 4 years, we're not doing Transformers anymore. Let's bring back something like Micronauts or just anything to just kill time. And then I would go and gather up a bunch of newer toy designers, young kids, new ideas, fresh ideas, and I would task them, we're doing a major reboot. I don't want to hear the word Autobot. I don't want to hear the word Decepticon. You are allowed to use Optimus Prime, Megatron, Cybertron. Other than that, I want new. I want new engineering, I want new ideas, I want a new identity. And then after a few years, like I say, we'll do 3 or 4 years, and people will be like, man, I miss Transformers. I wish Transformers would come back. We would show back up with a new show, and the new show is going to bring in the old fans, but then the new fans can also be brought in because this is new, and it's interesting, and it's fresh. Essentially, I would do what Kenner did with Beast Wars. That's what saved the franchise from G2. And I think that is absolutely what we need nowadays, is someone to just be fresh again and be energized. And more importantly, the most important thing of all, the toys are made with kids in mind first. I don't care if we lose the entire adult fandom. Transformers should be targeted to 6-year-olds, not 26-year-olds like me. And I think that's the reason why Transformers is in a bit of a rocky spot right now, is Hasbro has pandered so much to the older audience that they forgot that they're making toys for kids. Ah, Zalmos! This is Zappy Zap. They're the one who did my Cosmos thumbnail. Okay. Once again, congrats on reaching 10K. Woo! So yeah, I want to say first that I really appreciate your channel and you, like, so much. I swear to God, I'm inspired to do videos like you. But yeah, here's my question. What is your main thing when it comes to collecting? Like, what is your mindset on it? Mine is based on what I think will look aesthetically pleasing, and I think scales well together and affordability. Truth be told, my collecting doesn't really follow a set plan. It follows what are the characters and aesthetics I like. And just looking around my room, yeah, it's mostly Transformers, but like, I really enjoy the Daleks. So I have a whole shelf of Doctor Who Daleks. I like Star Wars. I didn't show it in my collection tour, but I have a shelf that's literally just Ahsoka and some Clone Wars Jedi and Clone Troopers with Cad Bane thrown in. Because those are the only characters in Star Wars I really enjoy. I have a Toy Biz Marvel shelf because I really like those toys. The big thing is I want toys that I want to mess with. If they look great but they're fragile or they're a nightmare, I don't want them. There's one-step changers that I would pick over a Masterpiece toy any day of the week. I would grab one-step changer Underbite before I would grab Masterpiece 3.0 Optimus Prime. So that's it. It's a lot of my own preferences when it comes to tactile feeling, aesthetic, and most importantly, I want to like the character or the show, which is also why there are some pretty important characters that I don't have any toys of. It's just, I don't care for them. Bendy Nightmares. I have an idea for my Transformers show I've been wanting to make, and I want to get your opinion on it. It's about Nemesis Prime. So Nemesis Prime comes from when Optimus stops a dark energon blast with the Matrix, and the dark energon in Optimus' body takes all of his negative emotions about himself into becoming a split personality that can take control of his body at times later. Optimus fights to overcome Nemesis. He manages to do it, but Nemesis was able to separate himself from Optimus to a clone Optimus body, so he can still cause Optimus so much pain. And that's it. I hope you like it. It's been one of my longest lasting ideas I wanted to see in Transformers. I hope you like it. Yeah, I think that there's a lot that you could expand on there and build up. I don't know if you're a fan of comic books, Bendy. Years ago, they did a miniseries. I think it was literally called Sentry. And it's when Marvel introduced the character of Sentry as well as their arch enemy, the Void. And I think you might be interested in reading a comic like that because it has a similar notion here. And maybe you could help use that to not, make your own story, but just do your own research, get some inspiration. Because, yeah, I think this could be cool for Nemesis. It's Charlie Young. Which Transformer toy in your collection is, in your opinion, the worst? Again, I'm not too big on questions like this. Bumblebee movie leader class Megatron, just because I hate his transformations. Leia 1997. How many toys do you currently own? It kind of has to be north of 1,000, I think, at this point. I've not counted them up in years, but a good many. A good many. Oh, hey, Enemy. So, Enemy Still wants to ask, what would you want from a TF1 sequel now that it's all but confirmed that we aren't getting one? Truth be told, I didn't want a sequel to Transformers 1. I thought it was a good bottle. I could show that to anyone and they could understand Transformers. And in fact, I did that. There's many friends that I've been trying to get into Transformers for years. And TF1 finally did it because it kind of summed up Transformers in a way that no other single episode of a show has ever done. So I don't really know what I would want of a sequel. I kind of enjoyed it being its own monomyth origin story. You could kind of put that movie before any cartoon and it kind of works. Tommy G. Williams 6730. What is my favorite piece of headcanon? I guess it's Flint Dilley's idea that Cyclonus is made up of both Bombshell and Skywarp. I hate that debate so much. I like the idea that Cyclonus is just both of them. Which Transformer is the one you most want to do a video of in the Mini Toys of Blank series? I don't really know. Windblade is really high up there. Scrapper is pretty high up. The thing is, as much as I enjoy the Mini Toys of, there is a part of me that would like to eventually move away from that and do more videos like, say, my Prowl 2 video or my Beast Wars Inferno video, and like not even talk about toys, but just talk about these weirder characters or storylines in the franchise. So when I sit down and think like, what's my dream video? What are videos I'm just dying to make? Many Toys of actually tends to be pretty low. It still is our weekly upload video, and I'm still always happy to do it. But I'm more excited to do other videos away from the Many Toys of. If you could have Transformers crossover with anything, be it toys or a comic, what would it be? And I'm going to add the extra challenge that it can't be a crossover we've already had. Um, I'm gonna say Jaws. I want a Jaws story where the minnow transforms and looks like Captain Flint, and the shark is actually Skybite. Megalosaurus Studios 2 wants to know what are my thoughts on Rail Racer from RID 2001. I really like them. I think they're a great combiner. The toys are really interesting. I don't honestly know if you could improve on that toy. I think that's as good as that character can get. I think if they remade him today, it might actually be a little bit worse. Arnold Cookie Down 3123. What is my Transformers Grail? Do I already have it? And if not, why? I don't actually try to do Grails just because I feel like that's a way to make myself miserable. If I had to say, like, what's one Transformer toy I really, really wish I could mess with, I think I would say G1 Diatlas, just because that toy looks amazing. So yeah, I'll say that. G1 Diatlas is my Transformers Grail. Nerds Animation. What is my least favorite figure or character? I'm not going to even bother with figure. So, least favorite character. I've already done Bayverse Optimus. I'm just going to say the entire country of Carbamia. Because not only was it unbelievably in poor taste even back then, but it made Casey Kasem leave the franchise forever. And when you steal Cliffjumper away from me, I'm always going to have issues with the insistence on having Carbamia in the cartoon. What redeco do I think saved a terrible mold? I'm actually going to go with one of my least favorite Seekers. I hate the Voyager animated Starscream. I think he's a really bad toy. Sunstorm isn't a good toy, but he looks so much better that I like having him just because I think the presence is great. So I think animated Sunstorm is one of my favorite repaints. And when are you going to do the mini toys of Hound, man? I just don't know. I know this isn't the same thing, but Main Toys of Bulkhead is going to be coming out in a couple months, so they're kind of Hound adjacent, I guess. ZachBat14 has a good number of questions. Number 1, besides Transformers, are there any robot or mech franchises I like? I don't think so. I'm looking around right now. I'm not seeing any other mech series. Do the Daleks count? You know what, sure, I'm going to say the Daleks from Doctor Who. 2, if I could bring back any Transformers gimmick for a new line or for remasters, what gimmick would I bring back? I'm just thinking about Earthspark. I think that would have been a really good time to bring back Headmasters, because the Terrans and the Maltos, they were getting to a point where they were more and more and more in tandem. I think it would have been cool to just go all the way and do Power Masters or Headmasters again. 3, what is my favorite version of Optimus Prime? It has to be G1 Cartoon Optimus still. I think he's the perfect Optimus. Peter Cullen has such a wonderful performance, and he's so warm. That's the thing I hate about almost every Optimus after him, is that they're so cold and distant. This Optimus Prime is so welcoming and so nice. It's great. That said, I also really like Armada, Animated, and Skybound Optimus. Number 4. Are there any obscure Transformers characters toys that you would love to get a reissue, or have an obscure character that you would love to get a toy for the first time? I'm pretty sure I haven't said him yet, so now I'm going to say Transketo. I want Transketo back in the franchise so badly. I think he would be great. Alright, and this is Zach Bat still. Is there a crossover with Transformers that hasn't happened, but you would love to have happen? Oh, good God. I'm just going to go to Doctor Who again. I know Octus technically exists, but I would like an actual official crossover, and I would like the Decepticons and the Daleks to start fighting each other. G55544 wants to know, what Shockwave figures do I own, and what is my favorite Blokees figure? Since I don't have to be on camera, I can actually just stand up and go count up how many Shockwaves I have. Okay, I have the red Shockwave, I have the Cyber Battalion Shockwave, I have the Mastermind Creation Cyclops, Energon Shock Blast, Alternator Shock Blast, Animated Shockwave, Studio Series Dark of the Moon Shockwave, the original Dark of the Moon Shockwave, Cheetah's Prime Custom Shockwave, I have Reaction Shockwave, and a Cyberverse Prime Shockwave, Core Class Legacy Shockwave, Blokees Special Variant Shockwave, Blokees Transformers 1 Galaxy version Shockwave, the Melt Shockwave, the Earth Spark Deluxe Shockwave, a custom bat done up to look like Shockwave, Combiner Wars Legend Shockwave, the Swapticon Shockwave, the Cyberverse Spark Armor Shockwave, as well as the redeco that came with the helmet in the Quintesson Judge 3-pack, the mini Shockwave that went with the Mastermind Creations Cyclops, Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Shockwave, Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Legends Shockwave, and then the SDCC Prime Shockwave from Shockwave's lab. And then favorite Blokees is probably Scrapper. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Scrapper is still my favorite Blokees. Alright, one work shift later, and Doopy HPP is asking, what is my favorite shows, movies, or books outside of Transformers? My favorite show, I really like Columbo. That's really high up there. I enjoy Samurai Jack. I like All Real Monsters. I like a lot of cartoons, but Columbo is probably my favorite live-action show. Favorite movie, Kiki's Delivery Service, which is my all-time favorite movie. Anything that Hayao Miyazaki does is great. Other movies I really enjoy, I like The Quick and the Dead, which is a great Gene Hackman movie. And The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, one of my all-time favorites. And then finally, books outside of Transformers. My favorite book is probably Milton's Paradise Lost. I don't know why, that's just all that's coming to mind right now is Paradise Lost, so I'm going to go with that. What are your favorite 2025 or late 2024 Transformers? I did a list for my top 10 Transformers of 2024, so I'm just going to focus on 2025. And for 2025, I would probably say Age of the Primes Red Alert, Studio Series 86 Scrapper, and then Studio Series TF1 Sentinel. Those are the three that I'm really, really loving right now. Tarnished Steel. Have I ever heard about Megas XLR? Yes, that was a Cartoon Network show where they had a mech, but its head was like a muscle car. I don't know anything about the show. I just know that was what it was. It was on Cartoon Network, I'm pretty sure. What got me into Transformers in general? I'm pretty sure it was just the 2007 movie. I think it just came out at the right time. I was a kid who was already really into comic books and Star Wars, and Transformers just stole my imagination, and I absolutely have loved it ever since. And then finally, Megatron Transformers Animated versus Vilgax from Ben 10. Who wins in your opinion? Keep in mind, I've not seen Ben 10 past the first show. I've never seen Alien Force. I've never seen Ultimate Alien. I've never seen Omniverse. I think that was one of them. I've only seen the original cartoon. So if I say something that gets contradicted by one of those later shows, stop me. But I actually think Vilgax wins pretty handedly. Transformers Animated, all the characters' power was scaled way down to make it a little bit more grounded a show. So even though I love Transformers Animated Megatron as a character and as a villain, he's actually one of the weaker Megatrons in terms of just physical power. Whereas Vilgax, he's on about the same footing as, not a Darkseid, but maybe like a Mongol. Like, he is definitely not exactly top-tier Superman villain level, but, like, he's in contention for DC space villains, which is a pretty high bar of power. And you also got to remember, Ben 10 has all the powers ever through all the aliens in the Omnitrix. Vilgax could pretty handedly keep up with him in all their fights. Whereas Megatron, even though he won a lot, he also has a lot more defeats to his name than Vilgax does, if I remember right. So you're just comparing a more grounded Earth-based supervillain to a cosmic DC Comics supervillain. Vilgax wins pretty handedly. Oh hey, Carlos Joel Pescado! I'm sorry for asking multiple, and you can just answer one if you want, but we're going to do all of them. I've already said where RonBonDujon comes from. What do I think about Goldbug? I don't really have an opinion on Goldbug. The design is fine. I think it's cool that they tried to give Bumblebee an adult form, I guess. But I don't have much opinion on Bumblebee. I have even less opinion on Goldbug, I'm afraid. What do I think about Transformers Animated? Transformers Animated is probably my favorite Transformers cartoon. It was, alongside Armada, the first one I watched, and the one that I think had some of the richest storytelling, and yet was also still a comical show that had a lot of lighthearted moments. So I'm a massive fan of Animated. Devilish Boy. Favorite name for small-scale Transformers. In my brain, they're hardwired as legends. I always call that the legend scale. But if I were to take that out, I actually prefer legions as a name, for no other reason than they're so small and so affordable, you actually could build up a legion of them. Legends actually made it to where I didn't understand what Marvel Legends were for a little bit, because I thought Marvel Legends was the 3 3/4 inch range of action figures, entirely because Transformers made me think that Legends means small. Hey, BR Brokety! I really liked your Firminist versus Budianskin video, and hope that we'll get more video essay type content on your channel in the near future. I hope so. Well, I'll be honest, I would love to do more videos like that, but unfortunately, until I can have a little bit more free time, those videos just take a long while to come out. It's the same thing with my Cybertronian rankings, doing things like ranking the Season 2 Decepticons by how they do in Hell's Kitchen, or the Season 2 Autobots by how they do in an office environment. I want to do more videos like that, but while I'm still working 2 jobs and trying to make ends meet, I just don't have that much time for videos. And Many Toys Of takes up a lot of the free time I do have. So maybe one day. Maybe if there's a point in which I could go YouTube full time or things calm down, I could do more of those essay videos a lot quicker. But unfortunately, as it stands right now, that's going to be a type of video I can maybe put out once or twice every couple of months. Another familiar name, Egg Mayo Sandwich 6942. Questions. How do you stay positive? I'm watching what I say here because I don't want to come off as being attention-seeking or to be glum. I don't think I'm as positive as a lot of you guys see me as being. I think you see me make the videos, which are something that make me very happy, and get the idea that I'm a positive person. I'd be the first to tell you, I think I'm a very cynical person. And I guess the best way to visualize me would be, if you think about a duck, ducks above the water seem really, really calm. But below the water, they are kicking furiously because they're trying not to drown. And I guess that's how I view myself, and how Ron, the person, compares to RonBonDujon, the kind of character I put on for some of these videos. Question 2. This question is a lot less emotional. Alright. Have I played any computer games like Minecraft or Geometry Dash? Would love to see a gaming video once in a while. If you are new to games, you could stream and people will definitely help you. I actually did try to do some game videos when I first started the channel. If you look, I actually did the first bit of a Nuzlocke for Pokemon Sword, and it was fine. In terms of computer games, I actually didn't have access to a computer until almost high school. The only time I had computers before that would have been the computer lab at our elementary school, and even then we only got to use the computer lab about once a month. And the only game I really played there would have been Pop Tropica, so that's the only computer game I have any type of nostalgia or knowledge of. Minecraft I played a little bit on the Switch. It's fine. It's just not my type of game. And then Geometry Dash, I've never touched it, but I know a lot of people adore that game. Hey guys, this is Ron from the future. I was a big idiot when I answered this question and didn't consider they might be asking about current games, or games at least that I'm playing now that I'm no longer a stupid child. And for that, I would actually like to tell you about some games I really, really enjoy, specifically Psychopomp. This game is really cool. and it is one of the single best horror games I've ever played. That's also why I flashed a photo of it earlier when someone asked about horror games. I just didn't even think about telling you about games I might be playing currently. But I really, really, really enjoy that game. Von Lock 67. Have you ever wanted to make videos on other themes like cinema, games, or something else? I actually have tried that with the Godzilla videos, and unfortunately, they don't attract much of an audience, but I have tried it. There's a handful of other movie reviews on the channel, like I think I did a review for Transformers 1 and the Super Mario Bros. Movie and Spider-Verse, and they've just never really attracted many people. Do you want to travel to other countries? Absolutely, I want to travel to other countries. I know I already talked about Brazil, but I'd also love to see Argentina, and I would love to see Chile. And going from South America up to Latin America, I would adore to go to Panama sometime. Obviously, Mexico. Take in the Aztec pyramids, go and see Mexico City. Beautiful, beautiful city from everything I've understood. Nothing really in the United States that I care about, nothing in Canada. I would definitely like to go and visit a lot of Asian countries, like Japan. You know, a big surprise, a nerd wants to go see Japan. I'd also like to go see China and Mongolia, Thailand, Vietnam. Just take in all the different cultures and the history there. Going into Africa, I would love to see the Great Rift Valley, see where humanity literally started, take in just the sheer weight of that area, the ancestry that sprawled from there. And then I guess going back up into Europe, Macedonia, very high up on my list. I would love to see where the Hellean League started, take in the literal dirt that gave us Alexander the Great. And if I'm going to go see Macedonia, might as well go down and see Greece, take in the former city-states, and then obviously, France, Germany, Italy. No real interest in England, but I would adore to go to Ireland, which is actually where my ancestry is from. And very much like the Great Rift Valley, just go and see how the generations before me would have lived before coming to the United States many generations ago. Von Luck has a couple of other questions. Have you ever thought about how much you would get if you sell most of your figure collection? I do, and I actually kind of enjoy that, because it means that if there's ever a big problem, I always have some good assets I know could sell. It gives me a little bit of comfort, and that way I guess they're like an investment. And then what is my least favorite Transformers continuity? I don't actually know. Kind of like least favorite toy. I just don't think about the things I dislike all that much. I'm just going to toss something out there. I'm going to go with most of the G.I. Joe Transformers continuities. Because except for the one cool one that I think Devil's Due did, the one that had Serpentor in it, I think all the Transformers G.I. Joe crossovers really suck. And even that one is pretty bad. I just like some of the dumb ideas it had. The idea that Snake Eyes can cut friggin' Laserbeak's head off with a sword, it's the worst shit ever. And I hate that G.I. Joe is like this kid that Transformers has to constantly invite to playdates, even though nobody wants them there. Our Bacon 48! Hey, Our Bacon. Hi, Ron. My question is, do you have any interest outside of collecting toys? I do, actually. I'm an actor, which I always talk about my job. The other job that's not really a job is I do acting gigs. Nothing too spectacular, just some local stuff. Of course, I always have the pie-in-the-sky dream, maybe one day I could be in a movie or something, but I just enjoy acting in any form. Very much in the same vein, I like spoken word events, I like improv. I'm also a writer. I've been writing a handful of novels over the past several years. So those are my main interests and hobbies outside toys, is acting and writing. Jennifer Silva Rodriguez 5552. Have I ever seen Transformers Energon from the Unicron trilogy? I have. Which dubbing did you see? I saw the English dubbing, and I've also seen parts of Superlink. What did you think of the show? Good God. Middle child syndrome. incarnate is Transformers Energon. In between the incredibly fun, comedic stylings of Transformers Cybertron and the actually pretty good story and character arcs of Transformers Armada, Energon is just a very, very rough show. And even the good ideas it had, it squandered. Demolishor had a great character arc until they killed him, brought him back, and he didn't remember his character arc anymore. Same thing with Inferno. Good God, Starscream. Totally wasted in that show. Transformers Energon, not my favorite. Which character did you like the most in terms of design? Energon had really good designs, though, and great toys. And my favorite design might actually be Galvatron. I think that's the best look Galvatron has ever had. And aside from Galvatron, I really enjoy Cliffjumper. I don't even know why. I've just always gravitated towards that look. Another familiar name, Valentin Ventilla 4246. Did you get less death threats? You know, they did go down, and then they picked up slightly from the main toys at RC, but they're down again now, so hopefully they'll stay that way. Will I make wrestling figure reviews again? Probably not. I've fallen out of love with wrestling a lot. The more I find out about wrestlers, the more I realize I don't want to financially support wrestlers. And on top of that, there's just a lot of things that I do not personally approve of when it comes to the current business model of both AEW and WWE. So I just rather not engage with it. And then how are my cats? My cats are great. I literally hang out with them every single night while I edit videos, and it's amazing. Shup the Dep 5862. Before I read that question, you need to know I love your PFP. Good God, Tarn in a Santa hat. Just saying, both Santa and Tarn have a list, and you better believe Tarn is checking it twice. If you could start any new hobby right now, what would it be? Any new hobby? If you're talking about, like, toy collecting, I'm getting back into Kenner Star Wars, so I wish I had my old collection again, so I guess that. But in terms of just a new hobby of any type, I'm going to say flying airplanes. Not because I want to fly planes, but because it's expensive to do that. And if I have the money to afford that, that means that I have money that I don't have to use on the airplanes. So I'm going to game your question to help out my bottom line. Sorry, Shep the Dep. That's just how we play in Vegas. The TF Reviewer. I already see Needlenose in this question. Let's see how this goes. So the TF Reviewer, I'm getting Siege Springer, so out of that mold, 86 and Thrilling 30 Springer, which is your favorite? Thrilling 30 Springer, because that is also my favorite Springer design. I am actually not a big fan of his G1 look. IDW, I think, really gave him a glow up. And what do you really think of Needlenose? I like Needlenose. Needlenose, to me, is the proof in the pudding that even background characters can have great personalities. Because Needlenose had a fun personality in the few media appearances he had, and then IDW just gave him spotlight, and he handled it really well. It just goes to show there's so many characters in this franchise that you can always really put a focus on and get some great results. Transformers tie stop motion. Yes, if you could have your own team of Transformers or make your own toy, what would you do and why? So I'm going to assume that you're asking if I were to design my own Transformers toy. An idea I've always had is basically look at Soundwave. Specifically follow Cybertron Soundwave, where all of his cassettes were those discs. I would like a robot that basically was just discs stacked on top of each other, but then each of those discs could also turn into their own beast or robot modes, so they could all come together to make one normal-sized Voyager robot, or just be a bunch of tiny core class-sized robots. I don't know how that would actually work. That's just my pipe dream. JSpot699, do you use any product for your mustache and beard? If so, what products and what is your routine? Do I look like I use products? I'm afraid not. What you're seeing is my head and shoulders, I suppose. And I bathe every day, so I guess that's my routine. Also, do I think that we'll get a Mexican Swerve repaint out of the Retro Gears mold? So I'm actually not sure what this means. Is Gears, or rather, does Swerve have his own variant in Mexico, the way Prowl does? I'll have to look further into that, but if he does, maybe. We've gotten weirder repaints out of these lines recently. Oh my god, look at this PFP. Okay, Cheese Whiz 6256 with your amazing cat. If you were John Hasbro and had to pick new alt modes for Optimus and Megatron, what would they turn into? I've always been in love with the idea of Megatron being a Cadillac. Ever since I heard about that canceled alternators, I've wanted them to go back to it. So I want Megatron to be a Cadillac. And as for Optimus, I was going to say fire truck, and then I remembered, oh wait, he's been a fire truck? But I still think he should be a public service vehicle of some type. So I'm going to say a tow truck. I think Optimus should be a tow truck, kind of like Hoist. Dazzle Man, another familiar name. If you could choose any other figures to make the Godzilla collab with slight retooling, who would you choose? So, I think the big issue with the Godzilla collab is that they did the dumb thing, which is they tried to make Godzilla. And I'm reading your idea for Legacy Transmetal Megatron, the idea of using him to make a Godzilla. I see what you mean, but hear me out, you shouldn't make Godzilla. There are only 3 characters you should try to go after as inspiration. Mechagodzilla, Mecha King Ghidorah, and Mogera. I think that you should focus on the technological kaiju, because as soon as you try to make it look like Godzilla, it's gimmicky, it's dumb, I don't think it's going to work. As for Transmetal Megatron, great choice. I think that he should be Mecha King Ghidorah. Give him the 3 heads. In Dragon Mode, he already kind of has the proportions you need. Just get rid of the arms. And then in Robot Mode, he could look ultra powerful. Maybe you could even keep the 3 heads in some way. And then past that, I would say, how would we get a good Mecha Godzilla? I know, okay. Get Studio Series Age of Extinction Grimlock. And then use him to make a Monsterverse Mecha Godzilla. So now we have Mecha Godzilla and Mecha King Ghidorah. The only other character I think you should make is Mogera. And I don't know why you'd need Mogera. But if you want a Mogera, if you just absolutely need Mogera, we need a good blocky robot for them. And also keep in mind, Mogera isn't supposed to look like an animal. So I'd be okay just taking like Age of the Prime's Megatronus, who's already pretty blocky. Make the robot mode look like Mogera, and then just give Mogera a tank mode. And boom, those are the 3 figures that you should do if you're doing a Godzilla collab. And I don't think any Transformer would ever look good as Godzilla, because I don't think that you should make a Transformer that turns into the Big G himself. That's just a bit too much. Another familiar name, Dead End in the End. Do you know where I have your family stored? The real question is, do I care that you have my family? Second question, but in all seriousness, who do you think would win in a fight, Hot Rod, Hotshot, or Bumblebee? I guess it depends on the versions, but I think that if we were to take, just for the sake of argument, G1 Hot Rod and movie Bumblebee and Armada Hotshot, I think Hotshot wins. I think in most continuities, Hotshot wins for no other reason than Hot Rod is a bit of a slacker and Bumblebee is a Boy Scout. Hotshot is the only 3 of them that was actually a soldier. And even at the beginning of Armada, even though he was a very impudent soldier, by the end of it, he was like a stone cold badass. So I'm going to stick with Hotshot as my pick. A Table 1032. Thoughts on RID Strong Arm? I like Strong Arm. Cool design, great toy. I'd love to see more of them. Is Starscream a twink? All the Seekers are twinks. Favorite combiner? I'm pretty sure that I said Bruticus was my second favorite combiner, so I'm going to say Devastator is my favorite combiner. Any book recommendations? Any book recommendations? I'm a big fan of Milton's Paradise Lost. Glenn Duncan made a book called Lucifer years ago that I really enjoyed. World War Z is a good zombie book. I enjoyed To Kill a Mockingbird, though admittedly I'm a much bigger fan of the movie. Yeah, I guess those are my book recommendations. And then favorite non-Transformers transforming robot. Good question. I actually don't know. Favorite non-Transformers transforming robot. You know what? I said Mogera earlier. I'm just going to stick with that. Mogera. Hortica Nate 3821. First is kind of a big question, but from someone who has only seen the 1986 film Bayverse 1 and some episodes of a few shows, what Transformers show would you say is essential viewing? None of them. I don't think a single thing in Transformers is essential viewing. I don't think there's a single toy that everyone should have. I don't like that line of thought in fandoms. I think that's how you eventually get to like the weird tribalism of the Star Wars fandom. I think that whatever you like, that's what you should focus on. That's essential viewing for you. But what I'd also say is, if you like certain parts of Transformers, I would point you to other things. So, like, if you really like More Than Meets the Eye, I would say go watch Animated, if you haven't already, because you'd have a similar vibe. If you really like Animated and haven't seen Beast Wars, I'd tell you go watch Beast Wars. Again, similar vibe. If you really like Beast Wars, I would probably say go check out Skybound. If you really like Skybound, I'd probably say go check out Cyberverse. Like, that's the thing is, I guess there's always a way to kick the can down the street a little bit, but I don't think that there's any one thing that every single fan should have to watch or like, because I think that becomes really boring. Just like what you like, don't be a dick. Second, for Godzilla, what film are you most excited to cover? Well, I don't know how many more films I am going to cover. Truth be told, those videos take a long while to make, and they get very poor views. I'm lucky if they break 200 views within the first day. And it's a thing where it's not necessarily the views that bother me, it's the fact that so much time went into them. And then meanwhile, I have to put things on the back burner that I think would be fun, but would also get more people engaged. I hate to say it, I don't know if the Godzilla videos are going to be coming back, just because it's been real rough. But, maybe sometime down the road, if I ever did get back to them, the one I'm probably most excited for is Godzilla vs. Biollante, because I really enjoy that one. And then maybe Invasion of the Astro Monster, because I've never seen that one. Mika008MVS. What got you into doing the Every Toy Of series? Well, to get into that, we're going to go back to a video I made that was entirely about how to make the best collection for the Legion of Doom from DC Comics. And that was just because I was trying to build up a Legion of Doom collection. I made a video about it. Many months later, I was trying to build up a shelf for the Skybound series. And I made a video saying what toys I thought would be best to make a collection for the Skybound characters that were out at that time. And I enjoyed making that video and the Legion of Doom video so much that I wanted to find a way to make it a consistent thing. But I didn't want to do something like, how to make the perfect shelf for every G1 character, because I thought that'd get real repetitive. And ultimately, what made me want to do the many toys of was looking in the comments of that video and how people would say, like, I'm new to collecting, and this is great for trying to figure out what G1 sound wave I want. But what about other sound waves? There's just too many. And that's why, at first, Many Toys Of was called Getting to Know, and it was me going through what I thought was the best toy of every version of a character, which is also why that first episode, The Many Toys of Soundwave, is so bad. Eventually, though, I think around the Knockout episode, it became I'm covering every toy in the order they came out. So that's what ultimately led to me making this series. Again, from Mika008MVS. Alongside that, what motivated you to want to talk about Transformers in general? I've just always loved Transformers. And when I was first making reviews on TikTok, they were the first things I made videos for. I didn't do Transformers for a long stretch of time. And it's because Hasbro was doing just some outright evil shit. Like, not even getting into their factory situation, there was also the fact that they hired the friggin' Pinkertons to go after people. I say it all the time. As much as I like Transformers, as much as I respect toy designers, Hasbro as a company is terrible. And I look at all the people who make multiple millions of dollars to make that company terrible, those people in the stock rooms, those people in the shareholders meetings, and all I can think is like, imagine how many great toys could be made if you people weren't in charge. Same people who, of course, sent out the Pinkertons, same people who lay off thousands of people right before Christmas, same people who decide to make sweatshops in China and Vietnam, and the same people who, every time I say, wow, I feel really bad that people get laid off, I get people in the comments saying, well, maybe if Hasbro went back to G1. I'm sorry, I'm ranting now. So in truth, it's because I like Transformers. I just hate the company that makes them. And most of the people who come into the comments who talk to me when I say I hate the company, who try to get me with a gotcha. Powerglide 1985. Oh, cute username. So, congratulations on the milestone, Mr. Ron. Thank you. I want to say how glad I am to be part of your community since the beginning. Sick! Now, 2 questions. Who is your best and least favorite mini-bot? Favorite mini-bots are Cliffjumper and Beachcomber, no question. And then, least favorite mini-bot? Probably Bumblebee. And if not Bumblebee, then, I don't know, Huffer, I guess? Both in terms of toy and in terms of character. What are your thoughts on the news of Transformers 1? I feel really bad about it, but at the same time, I feel like Transformers 1 was destined to fail. Hasbro didn't care, Paramount didn't care, there was hardly any advertisements, and even if Transformers 1 was this massive, massive success, what were people supposed to latch onto? There were no comic books, no video games, the toy lines were only barely pumping out characters. It's going to take nearly a full year to get an official Hasbro transforming Alita 1, and she was one of the main characters in the movie. It's a thing where I think Cox and a lot of the people at the top actively stymied Transformers 1, and it played out the only way it could. It could have had all the success in the world. Instead, it was set up for failure, and failed it did, unfortunately. Atomic Convoy. How would you do a Godzilla x Transformers crossover film? So, believe it or not, this is actually a video concept I've been working on. So I'm just going to go through bullet points here, and I might flesh out the video later on if I ever actually make it. So what I would do is I would have it take place in between seasons 2 and 3 of the G1 cartoon. So we're going to be on Earth in the 90s. The Decepticons have gone to Monster Island, and we're going to set this during the Heisei era. So they have captured Godzilla Jr. If you're a Godzilla fan, I'm going to say that this movie takes place in between Space Godzilla and Destroya. So they are going to effectively bleed Godzilla Jr. to get his radioactive blood for energy. But then Godzilla actually shows up, he tears through the Decepticon defenses, and the Decepticons panic and retreat. But the Insecticons who were there got so gluttonous that they kept trying to siphon off a few more drops of baby Godzilla. So when they leave, he's still hooked up to the siphon, and Godzilla can't get it off, so baby Godzilla is effectively bleeding to death. Godzilla then goes on a rampage, goes straight towards Japan. The Autobots are called in, and their first thought is maybe they can communicate with Godzilla, but when that fails, they just make a giant energy barrier in between Tokyo and Tokyo Bay. So the Autobots, led by Optimus Prime, are going to get on their surfboards, and they're going to go try to distract Godzilla while Wheeljack and Ratchet hoist and grapple, build up the defenses. But then you got Beachcomber and Cosmos. Cosmos, his whole job is to monitor situations. And I think he would be saying like, hey, Godzilla usually doesn't attack unless he's provoked. And Beachcomber would second that, so they would fly to Monster Island and find that baby Godzilla is hurt. And once Optimus Prime hears that, he's going to send Hoist and Ratchet to try to help baby Godzilla, while the Autobots have to hold Godzilla off. He crushes through their defenses, rips through the barrier. Optimus Prime calls in Omega Supreme, and we're just going to make Omega Supreme like twice his normal height, so that he scales well with Godzilla. We have an awesome fight between Godzilla and Omega. Omega ultimately gets thrashed. Godzilla is about to kill him, until you have Beachcomber and Cosmos show up with baby Godzilla in tow. Godzilla sees the baby Godzilla is okay, and he just leaves. And the Autobots just have a moment where they essentially say, yeah, there's no way we could defeat that thing, but clearly this wasn't an attack out of maliciousness. It was just another creature that was made violent due to the machinations of the Decepticons. I would essentially write it as if it was a episode in Season 2. So no one's going to die. It's not going to be that horrible a raid on Godzilla's part. We're not going to have anything too harrowing. But it's just going to be a fun way to see a big stupid lizard crush a bunch of tiny robots. Because that's all I need in my life. Deltron 2. Pizza or burgers? Burgers all the way. Roddy loves Transformers. First of all, love your stuff, you so cozy. Oh, thank you. My questions are, what is your favorite Transformers comic series? Favorite comic series? More Than Meets the Eye is really high up there. I really enjoy the original IDW Beast Wars run, the one that had Razor Beast as the main character. And I mean, I throw Skybound in there. I'm still really enjoying this comic. How were you introduced to Transformers? I think that the first Transformer I actually ever came across would have been a Happy Meal Armada Starscream that was at my grandparents' house. I didn't know what Transformers were, but I guess that would have been my first introduction when I was like 3 years old. The best and worst thing about the fandom. The best and worst thing about the Transformers fandom. Well, the best thing is that the vast majority of people are really chill, and they have great conversations, and we get to just enjoy big dumb robots, and it's not ultra weird or competitive. The worst thing about the fandom, like every group, there is a minority, a vocal minority, a minority that thinks that their way is the only way, and they get ultra tribalistic about it, and they are an absolute nightmare to talk to. The same group of people who give me death threats over tariffs. The same group of people who put slurs in the many toys of RC's comments. The same people who, if I were to say, Cyclonus is a part of Pride Month, they would write an essay about how IDW is actually fan fiction and shouldn't be considered proper Transformers media. Like everything in life, you're always going to have a couple of jackasses. Thankfully, unlike Harry Potter or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or some of these other big fandoms, the jackasses have never really taken root in Transformers, and I'm very, very thankful for that. Kato 3. If you could design a Transformer and give it an alt mode that has not been done before, what would it be? I'm going to steal an idea from GoBots, which, let's be fair, so has Transformers for the past 40 years. Water Walk. I want to see a Transformer that turns into a seaplane, because that's a great alt mode. Chris Cox! Can you sing Phenomenon by Chappelle Roan, only substituting Rom Pom 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 for RonBonDujon? So I've never heard the song. I just know the chorus. It goes like ba da 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 da. You can take me hard to go. So I guess it would be RonBonDujon. There we go. I hope I didn't just butcher that chorus. Laserwave 22. If you could transform it into anything, what would it be, and how many figures would there be of it? What would I transform into? And then how many toys would I get? I'm going to say I transform into a billionaire, and I'd get many toys so I can get all the likeness residuals. Also, when you going to get some cute Transformers? As soon as I can find some that are affordable, because I try to go online and they go for like $40 a pop. And I want them, but I can't justify spending $40 for something that's just a little bit more articulated than a one-step changer. T-Boneless. I've noticed while watching your vids that you use they when referring to every Transformer regardless of gender, and I think that's neat, but why do you do that? That's just something I do in real life, just because it's easier. It saves time. I just say they. And it's also a great litmus test, because if someone gets weird about me saying they, it's a great way to know then and there that I don't need to give a fuck about their opinion. 2. Also, I'm super curious about what your music taste is. I think I've already said Marty Robbins, so I will tell you, my favorite singer of all time is Johnny Cash. And my favorite songs from him, I like God Gonna Cut You Down. The Man in Black, just a phenomenal show. Pain, of course. He had a great cover of Big Iron. And When the Man Comes Around is one of the best songs for, I guess, the apocalypse ever, which is why it's the one good part of the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead movie. WJ and 9964. Would you ever like a Mega Scream action figure, even though the comic he came from was pretty bad? Yeah, I would, because I think it's a cool idea. I will say the Power of the Primes Starscream isn't anything like Mega Scream, but it's almost there. But the thing that's cool about Mega Scream to me isn't just that you get Starscream, but also that the limbs would be Soundwave, Astrotrain, and then is it Dirge and Ramjet? Two of the Coneheads. I would totally like Mega Scream, but only if we get the other four components. Because I think it would be interesting to see a Soundwave and an Astrotrain that are also combiner limbs. FJ Gaming 7666. First off, congratulations on 10K. Let's make the number go up. Sick, thank you. Anyway, here my question. If you could pitch a Transformers series to Hasbro, what would it be about and what would it be called? So, I know I did the John Hasbro discussion before. That's if I was in charge. Clearly, I'm not in charge here. I gotta work within the confines of Transformers. So instead of doing my radical overhaul, like I was talking about if I were John Hasbro, I would instead walk in and I'd say, listen, let's look at your evergreen designs. Let's just take a moment and find a way to make this more interesting to kids. And what I would honestly say is, let's try to get on like Nick Jr. or Disney Jr. Let's make a real young kid show, similar to Rescue Bots. And let's make sure that this show is accessible. And let's focus in on making toys for these younger audiences. Because as soon as we get that, we're going to get a good 3 years where people are going to really like these young Transformers. And then we can take these characters and we're going to grow them up. We're going to do a big, kind of more normal Transformers show next. We're going to bring in Optimus and Bumblebee and Megatron and Starscream. But the kid characters that had shown up in this, let's just call it Rescue Bots 2.0, they will grow up and they're going to be proper Autobots now. And then we'll do another show down the road. We'll do a trilogy if things work out well. And in that third show, we're going to go into a little bit more like a teenager demographic, a little bit darker, a little bit more mature, serialized storytelling. And we're going to keep the characters there too. I think that Rescue Bots had a potential to take this massive audience it had cultivated and send them the way of Robots in Disguise. But they never did that. The only character that went from Rescue Bots to Robots in Disguise was Blur. I think that you should have taken Heatwave and Chase and Blades and Boulder. Just move them. Have that be Bumblebee's team. And that way, Bumblebee, that's how you get the older audiences in. But the younger audiences are going to follow the characters that they really enjoy and grow up with those characters. And the hope is, if we keep doing this, we'll keep the story going, we'll change up the aesthetics, but keep the characters. We're going to have these fans potentially hooked for life. That's what I would do. Megalon asks, with your many movies of series, will you branch out to other movies besides Godzilla, such as Dragon Ball and things like that? Again, I would like to, but it all comes down to time versus reward, and I just don't know how much longer that show will be around. RoboWarrior07. If there is only one Transformer you could have, what would it be? I would actually say my War for Cybertron Deluxe Soundwave, because for many years that was essentially the one Transformer I had, and it's the one that I would take everywhere with me. And to this day, if I go on a trip or I have something important coming up, I have that toy on me. So, probably that Soundwave. Packlander1. If you encountered Bigfoot and Elvis riding the Loch Ness Monster but were unable to snap a picture or gather any evidence, would you keep it to yourself and avoid ridicule, or tell anyone who will listen and damn the consequence? I mean, people listen to anything. As long as I work in some weird grift, I'd have a ton of people who would believe me with absolutely no evidence. Unknowed Valco. Congrats on getting 10K. Thank you. It's real impressive. You reached a milestone as big as that, and I cheer for you to continue pushing that milestone. Thank you. If you allow for multiple questions. 1. How and when were you first introduced to Transformers as a whole? Again, that would have been the 2007 movie. Do you have any Transformers characters that you would smash? No. Oh hey, Weaponoid's toy car! This is going to be an insane hypothetical here, but if the Lost Light crash landed on a desert island, who do you think will get cannibalized first? Okay, so who's going to be eaten first is what you're asking me. I'm thinking. So, it depends. If they all survived, then that's a different thing. So I'm going to say they all survived, and they're a real close-knit group. Getaway. They would absolutely kill and eat Getaway. That's what would happen. Dumboboy31. It's a stupid question, but how much money you think your collection costs? I don't want to think about how much money I've spent on this collection. Fancy Teaches 5003. I think I've seen most of your non-TF toy mentions, but did you play with or collect He-Man or G.I. Joe? I like He-Man a lot, actually. I have a handful of He-Man toys, mostly Origins, but I also have my Masters of the Universe Classics Filmation Skeletor and Battleground Evil Lyn. I'll be honest, I prefer She-Ra. I like all the characters in She-Ra. With He-Man, I prefer the Evil Warriors. I don't have much interest in the actual Masters of the Universe. He-Man's kind of boring, but again, I like She-Ra and I like the Princesses of Power. As for G.I. Joe, no interest. I say that. I like Cobra Commander, and I like Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. My issue with G.I. Joe, and I kind of said earlier, I hate how much G.I. Joe has been tacked on to Transformers. It's like every time it feels like there's cool momentum in Transformers, Hasbro's like, by the way, remember cousin G.I. Joe? Make sure that you play with him too. And G.I. Joe is totally that kid where it's like, if you tag them, they're going to say, no, I'm not it, or else I'm going to tell Mom. I'm going to tell Aunt Hasbro. I hate G.I. Joe, not because of G.I. Joe, but because G.I. Joe is the ultimate friggin' suck-up nerd. Like, it's just there, and we have to acknowledge it, because otherwise we don't get to play with Transformers. Blobbles5973. Favorite toy-only character? Probably Beast Wars Transketo? Yeah, I think Transketo is absolutely the king of the heap for me with that one. Tub the Nerd. What would you look like as a Transformer? Probably Bay vs. Hound. Fat guy with a beard. The Wild Robot Hype Fan 2025. Question, have you read the Wild Robot books? I did not know there were Wild Robot books. And have I watched the movie? No, but I would like to, because it seems very, very fun. Familiar name, Chustifer. Alright, let's see here. Question 1. Do you think Hasbro should actually do a Skybound-specific line of figures? So I was about to say no, because those are just the G1 designs, and then I realized there actually are a few unique things. Like, obviously, Optimus with Megatron's arm, Megatron with Laserbeak for his eyes, Shredhead. But even past that, you have options like Starscream with the Hiss Tank. You have Wheeljack when he was missing his legs. You obviously have a G1 Elita 1 that we still don't have a toy of, really. There are a lot of characters in there that would need new toys to actually capture those designs. So yeah, I think that would be fun. Question 2. Crossover figures, should they be subtle in bot mode like Ectotron or overt like Agent Knight? I'm going to say it's case by case. I think they should look cool and preferably be from things that I care about. Because I'll be honest, I can't think of a single crossover aside from Dracula where it's like, oh, that's a thing I actually know and or like. Miss Disaster, another familiar name. What are your favorite video game franchises? I'm a massive fan of Mass Effect. That's probably my top one. I love the Batman Arkham series. I'm a big fan of course, War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. Pokemon is always going to be very high up there, with my favorite Pokemon games being Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And I'm trying to think. Probably Mario Kart has to be high up there. That's my favorite Mario series. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Those are my favorite video game franchises. What are some of your favorite stories in fiction outside and from Transformers? So my favorite stories in fiction. Well, I like All-Star Superman. I'm just going to do favorite comic book stories. All-Star Superman is one of my favorite Superman stories. Also, Up in the Sky is a great run of Superman. I really enjoy Kraven's Last Hunt. That's probably my favorite Spider-Man story. And why don't I go with the Squadron Supreme, the original miniseries that came out during the 90s, which was kind of doing the same type of deconstruction the Watchmen did. And even though Watchmen was more important, I do think Squadron Supreme is a better story. Kigo797. If you could have any character, obscure or minicon, be a new figure, who would it be and why? I've already given a bunch, but I'll give another one here and now. New figure, so I'm going to say they have to have had a figure before. And with that in mind, I'm actually going to go... Oh, that's tough. No, I got it. Razor Beast. Razor Beast from Beast Wars, because he was the head of that IDW story I really liked. Oldest memory of Transformers. Again, it'd be that Armada Starscream Happy Meal toy. Did anyone get you into Transformers or collecting? Not really. I kind of just fell into it. Favorite food? Anything Mexican related. I adore Mexican food. They are my favorite cuisine. I can't think of a single Mexican dish I've ever had that I dislike. Master Far 8265. What was your first Transformer? My first Transformer ever that I bought, or rather was bought for me, would have been the deluxe 2007 concept Camaro Bumblebee, the one that had the gun that turned to a sword, though he very quickly got replaced as my favorite by Cliffjumper, who was the same mold but in a better color. Jason49110. Just 2 questions. How are you? I'm doing pretty well. You said you have a job. What is it? I don't want to dox myself. What I'll say is I am a tour guide. I give public tours, and I quite enjoy it. Totally not Xfinity with another question. What is your favorite Transformers movie? Favorite Transformers movie would probably still be the Bumblebee movie. I think it's the best one. Even Transformers 1, as much as I like it, I think Bumblebee is an overall tighter package. Davimus, hello. They got 3 questions. I've already done... Well, okay, which one is better between the War for Cybertron trilogy or Legacy trilogy? Overall, I'd probably say the Legacy trilogy. Have you ever played Undertale or Deltarune? I have played Undertale. I have not played Deltarune. What are my top 3 favorite multiplayer games? Multiplayer, huh? Well, I really liked Fall of Cybertron back in the day. And I enjoyed when it was still around the Arkham Origins multiplayer, where you were like Joker goons facing Bane goons, and you had like people playing as Batman and Robin. I always thought that was a really fun mode, even though everybody else seemed to hate it. And then, just easy one, Mario Party. Always fun for multiplayer. I have no cuts 06. What's a Transformers mold that you really like, but the deco drags it down and makes it worse? Ooh, that's a tough one. Because that's the thing is, most Transformers toys eventually get a good deco that helps save the toy. I suppose if I could think of only one that I don't think it ever looked good, though, it would probably be Beast Machine Silverbolt. Because I stand by this. That is actually a pretty solid little toy. But I think regardless of what version of the toy you get, the colors never looked good. Oh, Cheesimus! Okay, they have a couple of questions. What's your favorite song, band, music, album, or artist? Well, I've already said Johnny Cash and Marty Robbins. I guess I'm going to toss in Tennessee Ernie Ford, and the song specifically 16 Tons. Have you listened to Demon Days by the Gorillaz? If you haven't, please do. I love that album. I don't think I've ever heard anything from the Gorillaz. 3. How many Cliff Jumpers do you have? Well, let's see here. I have the Earthrise Cliff Jumper, the Missing Link Cliff Jumper, the Studio Series Gamer Edition Cliff Jumper, the Bumblebee movie Cliff Jumper. I have, of course, the 2007 movie Cliff Jumper, which, of course, is one of my favorites. Energon Cliff Jumper, Blokees Cliff Jumper. I have the Legacy Prime Universe Cliff Jumper, and I think that's all my Cliff Jumpers. And then finally, when's the next live stream? I'm afraid I don't know. Whenever my schedule eases up. My pie in the sky hope is maybe one day I could do full-time YouTube, and then that could be a lot more common. But as it stands right now, I just don't know. I gotta make ends meet. Dean Chua 8556. If all the limbs for the first 4 Scramble City style combiners die, who would you pick as their replacements? Okay, this is gonna be a bit tough. So let's go through them, right? So first 4. So first one would be Superion. So you need flying Autobots. So for Superion, I'd give him Power Glide, Cosmos. I'm just going to go ahead and make Alpha Bravo up. And then that 4th one, I'm going to say Trax. Just for fun, I'm basically going to say I can only use characters that would have been around or characters that would have been part of the team later. So for New Superion, it would be Silverbolt, Cosmos, Trax, Power Glide, and Alpha Bravo. For Menasor, obviously you still have Motormaster, and then you can use Off-Road, but now we need more car Decepticons. So Run Amok and Runabout, and then we're just going to upgrade Blackjack. Because Blackjack is the new identity of that little car that Motormaster already had. Okay, and then from there, you would have the Combaticons. Oh, that's going to be easy. Onslaught is just going to get Dirge and Ramjet and Thrust. And tell you what, we're even going to throw in Blitzwing. Boom. And then that leads us with the Protectobots. Again, that should actually be pretty easy. So Hotspot can now have Ratchet and Sea Spray. I'm going to give him Hoist. And why not? Grapple 2. Boom. I've given new limbs to all the combiners. Unicron the Destroyer. Here's the question. If you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be? Well, I'd go back about 26 years ago, and I would find the sperm right before it inseminated the egg that would become me, and I would tell that little bastard to turn around. Alright, Jack of all claws wrote a lot, but I think there's only one question here. When it comes to the Core 3 Evergreen Transformers characters for both the Autobots and the Decepticons, which Autobot do you think deserves to be in the 3rd slot alongside Prime and B? So, essentially, because Evergreen always has Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, who should be the 3rd Autobot? The only 2 that are in contention are Ratchet and RC, and at this point I actually think it should be RC. I think realistically it's Ratchet, but RC feels more right. Silvershot AMV, my producer, whole lot of questions. How's your day going? Pretty good. What is your goal by the end of the year? End of the year? I don't know, maybe 15,000 subscribers? What's your goal for YouTube? Not really a goal, just having fun. How are you doing mentally? Fine, I suppose. Would you ever review Lego Transformers? No, I hate doing on-screen transformations. I do not want to do an on-screen build like that. Where did you get the mini toys of idea from Diamond Bolt? Does Diamond Bolt do stuff like this? I actually didn't know that. No, I've always been very upfront. Many Toys of was just me trying to figure out another way to do the Skybound version of the shelf. And as a result, I ultimately landed on this. It was kind of inspired by Transformers The Basics, done by Chris McFeely. And if anything, I think I was indirectly inspired by Glenn Webb's action figure evolution. How does it feel to go from a tiny YouTuber to making headway? It is insane, and I can't believe it's actually happened. Would you ever do a top 10 best and worst figures you bought for said year? I've already done top 10 best figures. Top 10 worst, I just don't have any interest in. That feels kind of, I don't know, try hard. Who is your favorite YouTuber? My favorite YouTuber? Well, the first people I fell in love with on YouTube were the Two Best Friends Play. I'm still a big fan of Matt McMuscles. Bumbles McFumbles is someone who I wish I could be more like. But in terms of Transformers, TJ Omega I think is still the best one to ever do it. If given the chance, would you ever do a collab? Yeah, if I ever got the chance. If things keep going well, would you do YouTube full time? I would love that. And I would love to have more time to actually do fun videos and live streams, but At least right now, that's not an option. How's Armada Prime going? Last I heard, he was smelly. So the smell is gone. But at this point, I've put it off for so long that it's almost like a mental hang-up, but eventually I'm going to review this Armada Optimus. What is your Transformers hot take? I don't know. Okay, here's a good hot take. The best origin story were the Quintessons. And I don't like Primus or Unicron. I think that we should have stuck with the Quintessons as the main, ultra villain past Megatron. Do you like cars? If so, what's your favorite? I'm not much of a car person. There's cars I like, though. Like El Caminos come to mind. They seem cool. Will you ever buy the Q Transformers or Q, the ones you gush over? Absolutely. If they were affordable and available, I would buy all of them. But for the time being, if I just come across a couple, I'll grab them then. Silvershot continues. What are your plans for expansion, like your guerrilla reviews and podcasts? My plans for expansion would actually just be do a lot more high concept stuff. So more of the Cybertronian rankings, more going into the weird lore of things like Beast Wars Inferno. That would be what I'd be more interested in, is just talking about those weirder, nicher things. Have you ever thought about streaming on YouTube and Twitch so we can hang out gaming, taking messages with new bots reacting to Pulse Stream? Maybe. Truth be told, I just don't have time to live stream even. But if I could ever do that, sure, I would be okay maybe twitching games or something. Since you love Beachcomber, how do you feel about Cerebros, the headmaster for Fort Max? I don't really have an opinion on Cerebros, but he's supposed to have a similar personality, right, where he's a pacifist? I think that's cool, that the head of the greatest weapon the Autobots have is a pacifist. Ever thought about doing unboxing live? I don't want to. It feels very show-offy, and I just think it just makes people feel bad. Going to cons as a panelist of Patreon and showing your haul. Yeah, I mean, if I could ever go to a convention, that'd be great. I don't know about being a panelist, but, never say never. Do you watch stop motion at all? Yeah, a lot, actually. Just whenever it pops up on my feed. What do you think of Transformer 1 as sequel being cancelled? I hate it, but also I think Transformers 1 was a really good bottle, so I think it feels good where it ends. Who's your favorite artist or band? My word, I've gone through a lot of favorite artists or bands at this point. Another person who I really enjoy is Worth It Kids. I like all their songs they've done for Big Top Burger. Favorite song? Oh god, another favorite song. I like You'll Be Back from Hamilton. That's a good one. Have you ever heard The Conventional of Primus? I think that's Covenant of Primus. I have not read The Covenant of Primus. I'm sure it's interesting. Do you care for Voltron or like him? No, not really. I don't have any opinions on Voltron. Nameless User 780. What is my top 5 favorite big bads of the IDW comic series? Big bads, huh? Well, the first one that comes to mind, obviously, is Tarn. Overlord is also really good. Megatron had good showings as a villain early into IDW 1.0. Starscream, President Starscream, was amazing. That's 4. I guess I'm just going to cheat and go with Bludgeon, because Bludgeon's always a good standby. Flicker Shepherd. What Transformers character would you like to see get more figures? So, more figures. Again, this implies that they've already had toys, but I'm actually going to tell you someone who hasn't had toys but needs them. It's Lug and Anode. I think they need toys, and I hate that it's been so long since they've debuted and we still don't have toys of them. Yep, U3Q. Can you please offer some knowledge of Slammer? Yes, Slammer is the tank that hangs out in Autobot City. He also forms a tower, and alongside Scamper and Six Gun, he is not his own individual, he is just a component of Metroplex. But because Metroplex's brain is so big, all 3 of them are on a hive mind, they all 3 are the same consciousness, and yet they have different personality traits. Slammer tends to be the depressed side of Metroplex, whereas Six Gun is the more anxious, somewhat irritable side, and Scamper is the all-loving side. Slammer is the one that has the big city bot's sadness, the sense that he's not doing enough to save his fellow Autobots. That is what I know about Slammer. Second question. And when is the mini toys in Nova Prime? I don't know, man. Sometime. Nod Disciple 1. Who is the best Transformer and why is it Blitzwing from TFA or G1 animated Galvatron? Best Transformer. I'm going to assume you mean best Transformer character. Who is the best Transformer character? I think of a bunch of them that I like. I'm going to say best character for me personally is still Thundercracker. And if I had to get specific, it's all the versions of G1 Thundercracker, so that includes IDW and Skybound. Supersonic speed, 89754. Alright, well that's not even the final numbers there. My question is, what is your favorite version of Optimus Prime? I'm going to take this to mean favorite toy of Optimus Prime, in which case it is Classics Optimus. Oi, totally not Xfinity again. What would be your dream Transformers show movie character cast? So, if I were to make a show, I actually like the idea of 3 Autobots versus 4 Decepticons, and then building up from there. I think Armada did it perfectly with that. And my dream 3, I would like Optimus and Alita. And then as for that third one, I would actually put in Beast Wars Silverbolt to try to balance them out. And then for the bad guys, Megatron, obviously. But then I think I would actually go with Skybite, Skywarp, have them be a duo, and Scrapper. There we go. That's my dream Decepticon and Autobot cast. I'm sure my show would go really well. Go 1916. Who's your favorite Star Wars glup shitto? Well, I'm gonna give you a hint. Jedi magics don't work on him, only money. It's gotta be Watto. I love Watto. Skyblades. What is the best figure and the worst figure of your favorite Transformer? Well, my favorite Transformer is Thundercracker. My favorite figure of him is the Thrilling 30 Thundercracker, the one that's the Fall of Cybertron design. Worst Thundercracker, that one's tough. I'm actually going to say... No, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to say the Legends scale Cybertron Thundercracker, because that's my least favorite design, and I think that's the worst toy of that design for Thundercracker. Ickle my pickle. Alright, sorry I haven't been commenting for a while. I was on vacation, but now day 1 of asking for the mini history of Mirage. And as for the question, what's your favorite figure in your whole collection, and who's your favorite Transformers character? My favorite figure in my whole collection. I'm going to go with another different option. I'm going to go with 07 Landmine this time, because I just absolutely adore him, and I think he is one of the most underrated Transformers toys of all time. As for a favorite Transformers character, I've already told you about my love for Cliff, I've already told you about my love for Soundwave and Thundercracker and Scrapper, so I'm now going to hit you with my second favorite Autobot, that being Alita 1. I absolutely adore her and have ever since I was a kid. Neko the Toaster! Hello, hello! So, questions. What is your most favorite and your unfavorite figure in your collection? A lot of questions like this. I'm going to go this time with my Age of the Primes Super Starscream, the convention exclusive Armada Thundercracker. He is one of my favorites. Least favorite. Bumblebee Movie Core Class Frenzy. Why not? What is your favorite Pokemon? My favorite Pokemon, depending on the day, it is Gliscor, Garchomp, Typhlosion, or Ariados. Those are my 4 favorites. Your favorite Pokemon game? I actually said this offhandedly. It's Heart Gold, Soul Silver. 4. Your favorite Transformers channel? Again, I think I said this offhandedly too. TJ Omega. Well, I guess the real answer should be mine. Do you like the stop motions of the Transformers from the community? I do. I see a lot of them and I think they're really fun. Favorite kaiju of Godzilla? So, my favorite kaiju in Godzilla is either Mothra or King Ghidorah. It changes by the day, but those are always the 2 at the top. Just below them would be Destroya, Gigan, Megalon, and Gorosaurus. Neko continues. Do you even thinking about how big your channel can grow and the number of people seeing your content from any part of the world. It's real humbling. It's insane to think of how many people watch my stuff, and I just hope it keeps staying good. I hope as we grow that it never becomes soulless, you know? The Elite X Gamer 27. Would you ever do the many toys of Diaclone? I think that'd be a really interesting video to make. The only reason I haven't is because Chris McFeely did a video, the basics on Diaclone, around the time I started making the many toys of. So at first I didn't want to do it because I was worried about stepping on his toes. And also, the fact that most of the Diaclone versions of the molds are now their own characters, that's kind of led it to where I don't touch them. So for instance, if I were to talk about the many toys of Spinout, I would talk about the Diaclone mold that became Sunstreaker. But I think it'd be fun to go back and actually catalog, like, where did all of the 84 and 85 cast members come from? Because it wasn't just Diaclone. There was a lot of other toy companies that were sending over some really cool characters. Or at least cool toys that became cool characters. Ah, it's Carlos again. Mr. RonBon, what would you say are the qualities that a non-transforming figure has to have to be good? So, for me personally, a non-transforming Transformer figure needs to just know what it is. I think that if you're going to be an action figure, you should be more accurate and better articulated than a transforming Transformer. That's why I think Red suffered so much, is they had an Optimus Prime and a Soundwave that came out around the same time as the Siege versions, and the Siege versions were better articulated and could actually transform. So that's why I'm always singing praises to the 3-0 Transformers. They have unique aesthetics that a transforming figure could never have. Their articulation's incredible, and they have amazing detail. But then at the same time, I think there's a lot of good non-transforming Transformers that aren't all that articulated, like the Action Masters. But I think the difference there is the Action Masters were also very cheap, and they had good accessories. I look over at, say, Super 7 Reaction. Those guys are nearly $20. And I don't think you're getting enough for that price point. So I think the qualities are, know what you are, do it well, and make sure that you have a sane price. That's my criteria. HF Studios Official, how are you? I'll tell you, after doing 100 questions back-to-back, more than 100 actually, 100 submissions back-to-back, I'm a little bit hungry. Samantha Adams at 619. If you were a Transformer, what would your alt mode be? Well, I can't say a billionaire again. I'm going to say a cat. And then I'm just going to go live a cat life and never be bothered again. Stellar09. Do you prefer where mainline Transformers, Age of the Primes, and all of Studio Series is now, or do you prefer another point in this part of the brand's history like 2021 with Kingdom and SS, or 2015 with Combiner Wars, etc.? I like where it is now. I think, in terms of engineering, I think the peak was actually Siege, Earthrise, Kingdom. I think now we're in another world where Cox has brought down a whole lot of budget crunch on the design team, and they're still making amazing toys. But it's undeniable. Grab an Age of the Primes Voyager and match them with a Siege Voyager, the difference in weight is crazy. So I wish that we got the amazing character selection of today with the production value of the War for Cybertron trilogy. Because I think in terms of characters, it's the best it's ever been. And the toys are still really, really good. But the designers are being more and more and more and more hamstrung by a rich trust fund kid. Totally Not Xfinity with another question. If every G1 Constructicon did a 1v1 with G1 Bumblebee, who would be most likely to beat Bumblebee? Is that a trick question? All of them. Literally any of them. Literally any of them kill Bumblebee. I guess Scrapper does it the fastest, though. Ah, The Last Prime! Hello, Ron. I haven't been on YouTube for a minute, so that's why I haven't commented. But my question is for you, what is the worst Transformer ever to you? My word. It's always hard with these questions. I guess I'm just going to go for low-hanging fruit this time. It's going to be Titanium G.I. Joe Megatron for no other reason than he can't stand up without falling apart. I have a late-minute inclusion here from Snitty Guy. Snitty Guy is just asking about trademark names in Transformers. Why do some names come and go? And it's the same as with everything. It's because a trademark is a living legal idea, and what that means is it's not set in stone. If you have a trademark for something, you have to re-up that trademark every few years. And the way you do that is, one, you have to show that you're still using it somehow. That's also why there's so many name dumps in Transformers, is it was just a way to re-up the trademark. But alongside that, every few years, regardless of how often you use your trademark, you have to pay to continue to own that trademark. And it depends on state to state how much you pay for a trademark. But take Optimus Prime, for instance, right? Hasbro uses Optimus Prime 100 times every year, but they still have to re-up after so many years. And the reason as to why we lost a lot of names in Transformers is because after G2 and going into the Beast era, a lot of names just weren't in use anymore. Alongside that, toy companies didn't think that that was as necessary to keep those trademarks alive and viable, which is why we lost Shockwave for a long time. It's the reason why we lost Skyfire as a name for a little bit there and had to call the Energon guy who's supposed to homage Skyfire Sky Blast. As time's gone on, Hasbro's gone a lot better at keeping up with their trademarks, which is why it's pretty rare for it to happen nowadays. But especially in the 2000s, it was just a completely different industry. And one of my favorite stories I've ever heard, Aaron Archer shared it at a BotCon convention years and years and years ago. But Aaron Archer revealed that during the Unicron trilogy, Megatron's name was actually running up. They'd have to re-up the name. And Hasbro's legal department tried to convince Hasbro management that they should just let it lapse. Because at that point in Armada, they already had Galvatron. And the legal team basically said, well, if he's the same guy and we're already calling him Galvatron, why do we need Megatron? We'll just call the bad guy Galvatron from now on. And that's the reason why in Transformers Energon, he goes back to being Megatron. It was literally a thing where Aaron Archer had to tell the writers, make him Megatron again. I have to convince the legal department to keep this name because we can't lose the name of our main villain. So, essentially, lawyers are not toy designers, bureaucrats are not toy designers. To them, they just look at a name and say, well, we're not using it, we can lose it, we don't have to spend that money. But meanwhile, the toy designers and the people in charge of the brands, they would like to keep all these names around, because that means that they are names and characters that you can go back to for new toys. I know that that's a very long answer, but I wanted to cover all the bases there, so I hope that makes sense. Essentially, the reason as to why you might lose a name is just because you're not using it enough, or because it's not being re-upped. The other third option that could happen is if the trademark becomes too generic. And believe it or not, that's actually happened to Transformers a few times now, in that Transformers, as a name, is almost too vague. If you're curious as to why they want Optimus Prime to say convert and roll out, and why every box now says converts instead of transforms, it's because transform is a verb. That just happens. Transformers. There's 45 different things that a transformer could be, ranging from electrical equipment to a toy to just someone metamorphizing. You could call a butterfly a transformer if you want to. It transforms from a caterpillar. So that's the other thing. It's the reason why Hasbro has been trying to make a switch to convert as opposed to transform. Because as soon as a word becomes too generic, too overused, you just can't trademark it anymore, because you can't trademark a usual parlance. That's also why some names like Cosmos can never be trademarked. It's the reason why Bumblebee was so elusive for such a long time. It's the reason why Jazz has to be Autobot Jazz, and why Ratchet for a long time had to be Autobot Ratchet. Again, I think I took my long answer, made it even longer. I don't know why. Apparently, I'm just really interested in this topic, and I didn't even realize it until I started answering this question. One more last-minute inclusion, this time from Daryl Charbonneau Jr., just asking what character hasn't received a masterpiece that I think should have a masterpiece. And I'm really spoiled for option here. The big part of me wants to just say Lug and a Node, just so we can finally have a toy of Lug and a Node. But I want to try to use a character I haven't said yet, and I'm going to say Animated Swindle should get a masterpiece. If for no other reason than so we can finally have a Swindle toy that won't self-destruct. Alright, that brings us to our final submission. Hello, Linkergon7885. I gotta say, I always love seeing their PFP. Look at that dog, it's so cute. If Skybound did not use the G1 designs, what designs do you think they would use? Which ones would you give them? I would just let Daniel Warren Johnson and those artists make their own designs, because I think they would make some really cool, maybe anime-adjacent designs, kind of what we saw during IDW's reign. I would actually love to see what they would do. What is your preferred alt mode for Alita 1, anyone who has not gotten a consistent alt mode yet? So Alita 1's tough. I don't want her to be a motorcycle. I hate that she's becoming a motorcycle because that feels like it should be RC. I like Earthspark where she's like a souped up Humvee. I feel like that's good. But in all honesty, I also like the idea that Alita 1 turns into a jet or a boat. I think that she should cover a terrain that Optimus doesn't. And then finally, and I've noticed that you've included RC in your Pride Month videos. Does that mean that you consider her to be trans rep because yikes? What I'd say is, I don't think RC is the poster child for good representation. I think that RC has been put in that position by bad writers, but she's still been embraced by a community who like her despite her flaws. And I'd also point out, I said this in the Many Toys of RC, this question was given to me before that video came out. The first trans RC would have been Energon RC, and I think that's actually a really good representation. Yeah, it's not as overt as IDW, but it's still there, and it's still a component of RC's character. I would say that in IDW, and keep in mind that this is coming from a cisgendered man, if I were to say who my favorite trans representation in IDW is, it would be Lug and a Node. At the same time, RC, for better or for worse, is the more famous example. And even if you want to remove that component of her, RC is still massively important to the gay community in Transformers. She's also important to a number of female presenting fans within the Transformers space. It's a strange thing where, yes, RC has offensive components to her history, but that doesn't change where her place in the fandom is. I suppose if you want to find a character who is similar, Speedy Gonzales comes to mind. Many people at one point would have told you that Speedy Gonzales is horribly offensive, but in Mexico, Speedy Gonzales was beloved and seen as a great representation of Mexican culture and character. And was Speedy Gonzales supposed to be that? No! Speedy Gonzales was written with very offensive comedy in mind. But that doesn't change the fact that the people that Speedy was supposed to be mocking instead found him empowering. And I think RC is very similar in that regard. So I hope that I've answered your question well, Link. I think that you're right. There's a lot of bad baggage with RC. But I think that bad baggage was put on her by hateful people. And that hateful sentiment has been overcome time and time again, to where now she's undeniably one of the most popular Transformers ever. And I find that kind of beautiful. So, I wasn't expecting the Q&A video to last for 2 hours, and I wasn't expecting it to take nearly 4 days to edit it, but here we are. I want to thank everyone so much for giving me these questions. I want to thank everyone for sticking around. If you made it to, what are we at, an hour 57, maybe an hour 58 at this point, thank you for hanging out with me all this time. And I hope we're excited, because the proper 10,000 subscriber special, The Many Toys of Starscream, is coming next.